They didn't ask. They told me. It's your brother's big day, of course you'll help. Then they drained my account without a second thought. Years of savings, gone with a single bank transfer I never authorized. My name is Melissa. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever been treated like a spare part in your own family, useful only when they need something? I was sitting on the floor of my apartment, knees hugged to my chest, staring at my banking app in stunned silence. $38,240. That's how much I had managed to save working 2 jobs over 6 years. No. Balance. $12.56. No call. No warning. Just a text from my mother. We transferred the funds. It's for Brandon's wedding. Don't be selfish. I blinked. As if refreshing the app would bring the money back. It didn't. I called. No one picked up. I texted, "You can't just take my money." My father replied, "It's family money. You're not even using it. Be happy for your brother." Family money? That was my salary. My overtime. My missed birthdays. My dreams of finally opening a small bakery. Gone just like that. I showed up at Brandon's engagement dinner like a ghost. They greeted me like I should be smiling. My mom kissed my cheek. "You'll wear the blue bridesmaid dress, right?" I stared at her. "You stole my future," I whispered. He blinked, annoyed. "Oh, stop. You'll earn it back." My brother didn't even say thank you. His fiancée, Caitlin, flashed her ring in my face like I should clap. Diamond crusted. Cushion cut. At least $20,000. Bought with my money. I didn't scream. Didn't throw a scene. But something broke inside me that night. I wasn't poor. I was betrayed. There's a difference. They thought I would just accept it. Play the good sister. The obedient daughter. But they forgot something. Quiet doesn't mean weak. Over the next few days, while they obsessed over wedding colors and cake flavors, I made a different kind of plan. One that didn't involve bridesmaid dresses. Because if they thought stealing my savings was bold, they were about to learn just how bold I could be. And when I was done, the wedding would still happen. But everything they built would come crumbling down like sugar glass. Poetic, isn't it? They took my dream. So I rewrote theirs into a nightmare. They say blood is thicker than water. But mine felt diluted, thin as mist, especially when I saw the wedding planner hand my brother a folder labeled Premium Package, $92,000. I watched from a corner table at the venue walkthrough. I wasn't invited. I just showed up. Out of curiosity. Or maybe masochism. My brother Brandon laughed with Caitlin like they were royalty. My parents beamed like they'd bred a king. No one noticed me. Or maybe they did and chose not to. That's worse. I quietly left the venue and sat in my car, engine off, just breathing. I'd worked since I was 16. Never asked them for a dime. Every saved penny had a purpose. I wanted to open Melissa's Bread and Bloom, a bakery with soft lighting, plants and lemon scones. I had sketches, business plans, a landlord lined up. No. It was all buried under monogrammed champagne flutes and imported orchids for their dream. That night I opened my laptop and pulled up the bank statements. The transfer had come through my father's login, the joint emergency account I'd stupidly trusted them with, just in case. I stared at the transaction. I didn't cry. I opened a new tab. Typed, "How to freeze a joint account." Then another, "How to legally reclaim stolen funds from family." And another, "How to file a temporary restraining order, financial abuse." Then I did something I should have done years ago. I called Aunt Renee. She was the family's black sheep. My mom's older sister. A sharp divorce attorney who hadn't been invited to Thanksgiving in 5 years. She picked up on the third ring. "Melissa," she said, confused. I swallowed. "I need your help. And I'm ready to play dirty." She listened. Didn't interrupt. When I finished, she said one sentence. "You've got them right where you want them." The next morning we filed a claim. Fraud. Unauthorized withdrawal. Misuse of joint assets. I had receipts. Statements. Messages. Even the smug text from my mom. Aunt Renee smirked as she filed everything under my name. "They think you're the quiet one," she said. "Let's show them what that really means." The court gave us an expedited hearing date. But I wasn't done. While they picked out chandeliers and dance floor lighting, I was working with a private investigator. Why? Because I had a hunch Brandon's startup, the one he supposedly needed help funding last year, didn't actually exist. And if I could prove that, then they hadn't just stolen my money. They'd used it to commit fraud. And I would expose every last one of them. Not with rage, but with receipts. Because revenge, when baked right, is served cold. And I was about to serve them a whole damn platter. Have you ever sat across from people who stole from you and watched them toast with your money? I did. At Brandon's rehearsal dinner. Aunt Renee told me not to go. But I needed to see it. I needed to feel it. The silk napkins. The violinist in the corner. The smug satisfaction on Caitlin's face. Mom caught my eye once, didn't smile. Just looked through me like I was fog on a mirror. Dad gave a shallow nod, then raised his glass. To family, he said. And I almost laughed. They thought they'd won. They thought their silence, their indifference, their dismissal of me wouldn't cost them a thing. But beneath the table I held the photos the investigator sent me. Brandon's startup? A hollow LLC registered to a P.O. box. No product. No office. Just a PayPal account with my money passing through. And the best part? That LLC was listed under Dad's name. Fraudulent misrepresentation. Tax evasion. The beginnings of a case that could burn the entire facade they called a family. That night I walked into the kitchen while Caitlin cut a 4-tier cake made just for the rehearsal. My mother was praising her, arms looped around her shoulders like she'd birthed her. She saw me. Melissa, don't make this awkward. I blinked. I'm just here to say congratulations. Caitlin narrowed her eyes. Really? I smiled. Yeah. You're about to marry someone who lies for a living. Just don't put your name on anything. Mom snapped. That's enough. But I leaned in, handed Caitlin a sealed envelope. Open it after dessert. I left before the candles were blown out. By the time they read it, a copy of the financial records, a breakdown of Brandon's fake business, and screenshots of their texts. I was already in court with Aunt Renee filing the civil suit. Fraud. Embezzlement. Unauthorized withdrawal. I wasn't just freezing the account anymore. I was suing for damages. Emotional, financial, and punitive. And Aunt Renee? She was salivating. This isn't just a case, honey, she said. It's a masterpiece. 3 days before the wedding they got served. On the same monogrammed envelopes they used for their invitations. Dad stormed into my apartment. No knock. Just thunder. You ungrateful little. I cut him off. Come. I didn't take anything from you. You took everything from me. He stared at me like he didn't recognize the girl who used to sit quietly at dinner, nodding, folding her napkin neatly. Now I stood taller. Now I had power. And I wasn't afraid to use it. But sometimes, you don't need to scream to make people listen. Sometimes silence and a signature can tear down a kingdom. And I was signing every document I needed to burn theirs to the ground. Have you ever seen people scramble like rats when the lights come on? That was my family the week before Brandon's wedding. I heard through a mutual cousin that Mom was in denial, telling everyone it was a misunderstanding, that I was confused, that I'd never actually pressed charges. But the sheriff who hand-delivered the second batch of subpoenas to their door? He didn't think I was confused. Dad tried to play tough. He called Aunt Renee's office directly, demanded the lawsuit be dropped. She laughed in his ear. This is Melissa's case now. You should have stayed out of her pockets. The court date was set. And I was ready. But here's what they didn't know. I wasn't just going after them legally. I was going after them socially. Yeah, I had receipts. Photos. Screenshots. Texts. Bank statements. So I made a burner email account. And sent anonymous packages to the church Brandon and Caitlin were supposed to get married in. Or the catering company who had yet to be paid in full. Caitlin's boss at the nonprofit where she fundraised for children's literacy. Let's just say, asking donors for $50,000 while using your sister's stolen savings to throw a luxury wedding? Not a good look. By midweek, Caitlin's job called a suspension. Her boss issued a statement. We take financial ethics very seriously. And Brandon? His groomsmen started dropping like flies. Turns out one of them had invested $10,000 into Brandon's fake company. Another had co-signed a short-term lease on the apartment Brandon never intended to live in. They were furious. I didn't post anything online. I didn't speak to a single reporter. But somehow, my silence echoed. People started asking questions. And when you shine a light on liars, they either run or melt. At the final wedding rehearsal, the one they insisted on keeping even though half the vendors had backed out, Brandon showed up late. Alone. He looked thinner. Pale. Sweating through his collar. Caitlin. She wasn't speaking to him. Not because of me but because of what else she found. Turns out Brandon had been siphoning small amounts from her savings too. To fund his crypto investments. Which by the way were also fake. I watched it all from the back of the church. Quiet. So. Like a ghost of the girl they once discarded. Mom finally saw me. He walked over, trembling. You could have come to us. Talked to us. I looked her in the eye and whispered. I did. You just weren't listening. And then I left. I walked down the aisle. Not in a gown, not toward a groom. But past the ruins of their carefully built lie. I wasn't the one getting married. But I was the one being set free. You know what's colder than betrayal? The silence after it. Not one call. Not one message. My so-called family went radio silent after that rehearsal. But I wasn't done. You see, court was coming up and I wanted everything airtight. I sat in my living room surrounded by folders. Emails from the venue, bank withdrawal slips, even screenshots of Mom texting Caitlin. Melissa won't mind. She's too busy working. I documented everything. My attorney Renee was ruthless in the best way. This case is personal, but we're going to treat it like a corporation embezzled you. And in a way they had. They'd seen me as a machine. A dollar sign. Not a daughter. Not a sister. Not a human being. I was done being the quiet one. The courtroom smelled like wood polish and nerves. Mom wore gray like she was the victim. Dad kept tugging at his collar. Caitlin wouldn't even look at me. Brandon was sweating so bad the clerk handed him tissues. When the judge walked in I stood tall. Renee opened strong. Your Honor, my client entrusted her savings to a joint family account for safekeeping. Not only was she misled about where the money would be used, but she was intentionally excluded from the decision to reallocate those funds to a lavish wedding for her brother. My parents' lawyer tried to play the family misunderstanding card. But I had receipts. Projected on a screen for the whole court to see. $4,200 to a tuxedo boutique. $6,000 to a luxury florist. $9,000 to a venue deposit. All within 48 hours of me transferring my bonus check into the account. Melissa knew, Mom said on the stand. She just changed her mind later. I didn't say a word. I just nodded to Renee. Then came the hammer. Brandon had forged my digital signature on a few of the vendor contracts. Forgery. Under oath. His face turned white. The judge's voice was calm but lethal. This isn't a family issue. This is financial fraud, identity theft, and breach of fiduciary duty. In that moment the air felt electric. The same people who once looked down on me for working too much were now being exposed for using me as their private bank. The judge didn't take long. He ruled in my favor. Full restitution of $58,700. Interest penalties. Illegal fees paid by the defendants. And Brandon was to be reported for fraud. But the best part? He looked each of them in the eye and said, family doesn't mean you get to steal without consequence. I walked out of that courtroom without looking back. They tried to humiliate me behind my back. Now the world had watched them crumble in front of my face. And I hadn't raised my voice once. But revenge wasn't over. Because the next letter I mailed was to the wedding venue that still had Caitlin's non-refundable deposit. The letter was simple. To whom it may concern. I am the legal claimant to the funds used to secure Brandon Walker and Caitlin Walker's wedding event at your venue. Per court judgment on file, said funds were obtained through fraudulent means. I request immediate cancellation and reimbursement, or I will proceed with legal action. 2 days later I got a call. The venue manager's voice was tight. We've canceled their booking. Refund is being processed to your account. We apologize for the inconvenience. And just like that, their dream wedding was gone. I didn't stop there. I had time. I had money. And for the first time in years I had clarity. I bought a billboard. The busy intersection. On it, a giant photo of a check. Mine, dated, signed and highlighted in bold. Under it the words, Don't let family steal your future. Know your worth. No names. No slander. But everyone in our small town knew who it was about. Caitlin tried to spin it. Posted on Instagram, "Some people are just bitter." So I sent her a private message. "I'm not bitter, Caitlin. I'm free. And now so are you, free to fund your own wedding." No reply. 2 weeks later, I heard through a friend that they'd moved the wedding to Brandon's friend's backyard. Mom showed up in a borrowed dress. Dad looked like he hadn't shaved in days. And half the guests didn't show up. Word travels fast when you lose a courtroom case. I didn't attend, of course. Instead, I went hiking. Alone. Just me, nature, and the sound of my heartbeat, no longer drowned out by everyone else's expectations. It's funny how betrayal strips you bare. But peace builds you back differently. Not softer, sharper. At work, I'd been quiet about what happened. But my boss, Peter, called me in. He said, "I've watched you handle chaos with the grace of a general. We're opening a new office in Seattle. I want you to lead it. New role. New city. Fresh start." When I stepped off the plane in Seattle, I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I exhaled. For the first time, I felt like I was walking toward my life, not just surviving inside someone else's. And the best part? The house I lost, they had to sell it after the judgment. It sat on the market for 3 months. Guess who bought it back? Me. In cash. Under my name alone. But I didn't move in. No. I donated it to a women's foundation that supports financial abuse survivors. Let my family sit in the ruins of what they once stole, while I built cathedrals from the ashes they left behind. A month later, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. It was my father. He sounded older, like life had wrung him out. "Sweetheart, we didn't mean for it to go that far. We were just trying to help your brother start his life. Can we talk?" There was silence on my end. But in that quiet, 1,000 unspoken truths screamed. He added, "Your mom's not been well. The stress, the backlash from the community. People talk." I almost laughed. They cared about gossip now? About perception? After all the years I begged for fairness, begged them to see me, not just as the daughter who kept things afloat, but as someone with a heart, with her own dreams, they chose Brandon. Over and over. Even now, this wasn't an apology. It was a plea, because their world had gotten cold without my warmth. I said calmly, "Dad, you didn't lose me because you helped Brandon. You lost me when you acted like I didn't matter." He tried to interrupt. I didn't let him. "I rebuilt everything you threw away. Alone. You don't get to ask for grace now that you finally feel the emptiness I lived in for years." That was the last time we spoke. But Caitlin, she didn't stay quiet. One late night she emailed me, 4 paragraphs of venom. Blaming me for ruining her wedding, for shaming her in public, for making Brandon look like a fraud. He ended it with, "You'll die alone, bitter and forgotten. No one loves a woman like you." I didn't reply. Instead, I printed the email out, framed it, and hung it in my Seattle office. A reminder of who I used to shrink for. And who I'd never become again. I poured myself into my new role. I led a team of 10. I mentored 2 young women who reminded me of myself. Sharp, eager, full of doubt. I told them, never let someone take what you've built just because they carry your blood. And on weekends I explored the city. Volunteered. Laughed with strangers in bookstores and parks. No big dramatic love story happened. But I was falling in love with myself. With my strength, my silence, and the way I could now breathe without flinching. One Sunday I got a letter in the mail. From an anonymous sender. Inside was a photo. My brother. Working as a cashier in a small grocery store. No judgment. Just reality. Their big startup dreams. Gone. The business failed within 5 months. Turns out money can't buy competence. And love built on betrayal never lasts. Poetic, isn't it? They burned me down trying to build a castle. But I walked away and became a whole kingdom. Next part. It's the one where the dust settles. Where justice feels like quiet peace. 3 years had passed. I was sipping coffee in a sunlit cafe when I saw her. My mother. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older. Worn. She stood at the counter, fumbling with a credit card that clearly wasn't working. The barista offered a polite smile, but I could see the growing tension in my mother's hands. I walked over slowly. "Add it to my tab," I said, placing my card down without looking her in the eye. She froze. "Emily." I turned. She looked like she might cry. I didn't recognize you. You look different. Yes. Because I wasn't the woman they discarded anymore. I was the version of myself I had starved to become, through fire, through grief, through silence. I nodded. You doing okay? She nodded too quickly. Getting by. Brandon and Caitlin separated last year. He's back at home. Of course he was. Of course. I didn't respond. Instead, I handed her the coffee, smiled gently, and started to walk away. But she grabbed my wrist. Emily, wait. I know I failed you. I didn't stand up when I should have. I let things happen because I thought family meant sacrifice. I thought your brother needed it more than you. Her voice cracked. But I see now. You were always the one holding everything up. She looked at me, searching for something. Forgiveness. A bridge back. But I had nothing left to give them, except the grace of my indifference. I pulled my wrist away. I don't hate you, Mom. But I'm done building homes where I'm only meant to serve. She nodded. Not understanding fully, but enough. I walked out of that cafe and felt the sunlight pour over me. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about freedom. Brandon had lost everything. Caitlin had walked away. My parents were shadows of their former selves. And I had built a life that didn't need their approval, their praise, or their presence. I had become whole, not in spite of their betrayal but because I chose not to become them. People ask if I regret cutting ties. But how do you regret choosing peace over pain? They sold my trust for a party and a pretty dress. But I rebuilt my soul, brick by honest brick. And now, every step I take echoes with a truth they'll never unhear. I didn't just survive them. I outgrew them.